from the American Academy of Pediatrics.
Postpartum rocked me. I mean, I knew at a basic level what would be demanded of me, but there's no way to really know how excruciatingly difficult it can be to heal from giving birth. At the same time, you're getting to know this new human being who now lives with you and depends on you. Bonding with them in the midst of changing hormones and sleepless nights is not always easy, which is why I wish I had the book we're talking about today when I was preparing for this stage of my life.
I remember one of my friends, actually from medical school, so another doctor, who was like, I felt so stupid, cooing at my baby. And I was like, no, don't feel stupid. That is one of the most incredible things you could be doing, A, to build your baby's brain, but also to establish that connection because you're responding to them. And when you respond to them and you do that, they serve and you return the ball. They're like, hey, someone's playing a game with me.
Welcome to Healthy Children, the podcast for parents from the American Academy of Pediatrics. I'm Dr. Edith Bracho-Sanchez. I'm a pediatrician and a mama figuring it out. This is a judgment-free space where all questions are good questions and the answers will hopefully be even better. Let's get started. Today, I am joined by my good friend, neonatologist, podcast host, mom of three, and now author of the baby bonding book, Connecting with Your Newborn from the American Academy of Pediatrics, Dr. Joanna Parga-Belinkie. Joanna, welcome.
Edith, thank you so much for having me on.
I've been so looking forward to having this conversation. I have to tell you, Joanna, I was so moved by your book, and I'm not just saying that because you're my friend. I really was. I mean, there was laughter, there was candor. You packed so much into this book. You are one busy woman. Tell us why. Why did you write this book, and why did you write it now?
Well, I think it was all in your introduction to the episode. The postpartum period is just kind of a crazy time for families, right? And in the midst of having this new human being in your house that you're trying to take care of, and you use the word demanding. I mean, this is a demanding phase of parenting when you have a newborn because they need 24/7 care. So I really wanted to help families just kind of cut through the noise. There's so much information about infant care and get to the heart of what really matters for a baby and for their development. And that is having safe, stable, nurturing relationships and having loving, attentive caregivers that are going to be there for them. And I feel like that's what any postpartum person needs to.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, right? I mean, we all need that, not just the babies. The premise of the book, Joanna, as you mentioned, and I think you very successfully get at, is this concept of bonding, which we know is so important and yet not always easy. I'm curious about your own bonding experiences with each of your kids.
And I wonder too, do we know just how important it is? And I always tell families, in this first year of life, the baby's brain is growing just at a phenomenal pace. It's setting down neuronal networks and how it's going to shape itself and how it's going to grow. So this is just such an important period of time. And I was always sad when parents would wish away the newborn period because newborns, it's hard to interact with them because they don't give a lot back. And usually it's around 6 weeks when parents see the social smile that they're like, oh my God. Something from my baby. Yeah. I mean, and let's be honest, I had that postpartum experience that was tough. I remember, I trained in pediatric residency and then in fellowship. So I was used to doing 24-hour calls in the NICU, which are really high adrenaline and busy. And so I was like, I've got this sleep deprivation thing. I'm going to be totally fine. And listen, I've studied babies. So this should be just the most enjoyable period. Yeah. And then my first baby had colic, and I didn't kind of piece it all together at the time because it's hard when you're living through something to but compared to my other two babies, I mean, she had colic. She was a crier, and it challenged me in ways that I thought I was going to be prepared for and was not, because all of a sudden this person was living with me in my house. So it wasn't like at work where I could step away and process things that had happened. I was having to process in real time with the baby with sleep deprivation. And I want to say it got easier, but I think each baby was an individual, right? So there were just different challenges with every single postpartum period. And you mentioned it too, Edith, you're healing too at this time. So you're changing and you've got a new person you're taking care of. And that just sets up something that's going to be a challenging situation.
Yeah, no, definitely. And, I think people don't realize, I certainly didn't realize, I kind of knew of this concept, but when a baby cries and you're the mom, and I think it can happen to the dads too, right? But it most often happens to the mom. It's like your brain is completely overwritten by their cries. I mean, I can't think, I can't function. Like I have to do something to tend to my child. And it's not something that people prepare you for. I'll just tell you that.
I mean, I am just having flashbacks.
Yes.
Maybe it's PTSD to when my babies would cry, and just that it's a visceral, it's a hormonal response that you're having, and you want to take care of them. You want to address the concern, and crying always makes you think, hey, there's a concern. But first of all, crying is a form of communication, and it could mean many different things. I had to reframe in those moments where I was feeling a lot of emotional distress about the cry and be like, well, let me go through my checklist of what baby might need. And, the needs you can catalog. So are they hungry? I would kind of always start there. Did I feed them recently? Do they have a wet diaper? What's the temperature in the room? What are they wearing? Is that, as a pediatrician, I was like, is there a hair tourniquet?
Right.
Which I think is just a pediatrician worry more than what parents should really worry about. But, I had different things I would think about and I would try to address. And I want to tell parents that is the most important thing. It's the attentiveness, right? It's the I'm going to try to understand what you're telling me. And you actually, as a parent, start to learn different cries in your baby, which is pretty cool.
Totally.
There's been some research from this out of UCLA where someone developed an app that can look at kind of the pitch and tone of your baby's cry. And they were kind of looking at hunger, discomfort, and pain. And I think parents will tell you there's a pain cry, And so as you start to listen and learn, you do start to identify, hey, I think that's a hunger cry. So I'm truly going to go to feeding my baby first. And that's kind of the beauty of beginning this relationship with bonding and this trying. And you do not have to get it right. You just have to try. And isn't that the basis of all relationships, really?
I know. You sort of keep trying and keep showing up and you learn the other person better. And of course, it's the same with a newborn. I also have to tell you, Joanna, I'm going to be super candid for a minute here. Our audience, who have been listening for a while now know that I have one little guy. He's 3.5. His name's William. I'm going back and forth, again, being candid today, on whether we're going to grow our family further. And I say I because my husband's all in. He's like, yes, let's do this. I'm the one who's taking time. And I'm going to tell you, it's not because I don't think I can love another child. 100%. I can 100%, 10,000% love another child. That's not a question. The question for me right now is, can I parent another child? And I think we sort of tie so many things together, like loving a baby versus showing up and parenting a baby. And it's almost taboo to talk about these things, right? We don't really talk about the difference between loving a child and showing up and parenting a child. What I love about your book is that you get to some of these taboo things, right? It's the showing up, it's the being present. Of course, we're not questioning that you love your child. It's just a little bit different to think about their needs and your needs and what it means to parent them. So I want you to tell us more, in your mind, how does this work and what are some of the differences here?
And I think you bring up such an important point, Edith, which is parents often feel this pressure that it has to be love at first sight with the baby, that the baby comes out and they have to feel this overwhelming love for the baby immediately. And some parents do, and that is great. That is incredible to feel that. That is an incredible feeling. And some just don't. And that doesn't make them bad parents or mean that they did something wrong in bonding with their baby. I always tell people, think of the most important relationships in your life and how you've built them through time. And that's what you want to do with babies. So sometimes it's not about just the moment of birth, which is this glorious moment that can often be unexpected and not what you thought, right? It's about establishing this lifelong relationship with this person. And I think sometimes when you reframe it that way, that can help when in that immediate postpartum period, you're like, I'm suffering from anxiety or depression, which are really common after delivery, particularly for the birth parent. And I need a minute to gather my feelings about my changing body and how I'm going to relate to this person that I brought into the world. And that is okay. We should all give ourselves permission to take a time out and really evaluate what's important to us. And this came from having multiple kids, but with my third, I did a vision board before the baby was born, kind of asking myself, what were the qualities that I thought were going to be really important to pass on to my baby, that I wanted to emulate for them, that I wanted to be a part of our relationship? What were the things that were going to make me feel like a successful parent? And were those things, realistic? Or were they just things that, I was preoccupied with, but in the real life of forming a relationship, were not going to be the things that I could prioritize?
Yeah.
And so I think doing what you're doing, Edith, and really taking time to reflect about how this person is going to fit into your life is so important. And no one should feel rushed into how they build their family or the timing of how they build their family, or if they're, even going to do it at all.
Right.
Because it's a whole new relationship. I mean, you're introducing a whole new relationship. Your heart will grow in size for every baby, but you don't know when that's going to happen. It might not be right at birth. It might be as you're getting to know them, through the challenges of that newborn period and beyond, because they change so much. It's such a fleeting period, which is why I hope people can find things in it to enjoy.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you've guided us beautifully to do that and to give ourselves a little grace. Now, there's another couple things that I wanted to ask you. One of them is you define some themes in the book. One is love, of course. The other one is responsiveness. And the other one is demandingness. Talk to us about these things and how they're different from each other.
Well, so love is just, this commitment, this dedication, this feeling of joy that you can cultivate, right? And something that can grow with you and with baby and with your relationship. Responsiveness is just the idea. So people will often ask me, well, how do I bond with baby? What are some of the tips? And my favorite, that's why I'm laughing, is my favorite is something called serve and return, which I think really models responsiveness. Mm-hmm. And you might have seen videos of this online because I think they're absolutely adorable when you see this happening with babies. But the baby will make a sound like a coo or an ah, a baby sound. And the parent will model that sound back to the baby. And then some babies get really excited by that. So they make the sound again, and then you model it back. And I remember one of my friends, actually from medical school, so another doctor, who was like, I felt so stupid, cooing at my baby. And I was like, no, don't feel stupid. That is one of the most incredible things you could be doing, A, to build your baby's brain, but also to establish that connection because you're responding to them. And when you respond to them and you do that, they serve and you return the ball. They're like, hey, someone's playing a game with me. It's this tennis match now that we're engaged in. And they care about what I have to say, even though what I have to say
makes no
who knows
sense.
What it really means. Yeah, if only we could, we have a little bit of a cry translation. If only we had a coo translation, that would be really cool to know what each coo means, right? But it's this idea that you are responding. You are there. When they cry, you're trying to figure it out. And maybe you won't. But it's, again, the act of trying. So that's where I really, really take that in. And then, the demandingness. This is one of the hardest parts of parenting a newborn. This is it. You are required to be there 24/7. Even when they are sleeping, they need somebody who's going to respond to them.
Yeah.
And boy, is that exhausting. That is exhausting. And that's why I always say caring for a baby is a team sport. Like, you need other players in your court. And I say they should be other safe, stable, nurturing relationships that you want baby to see and model for when they get bigger, because, the more you show them how different these relationships can be, the more you're modeling for baby and giving yourself support when taking care of baby.
100%. Joanna, you also have charts in the book about needs. And I feel like I'm giving away too much of the book, but what I love so much about your charts is that you include both baby and parents' needs. And we're so used to seeing baby needs charts, we forget to add the parents in there. And you also went beyond the sleep and exercise to add socialization and recognition. So my question to you is, did you personally lack the socialization and recognition. I'm curious how you got to the point of adding these to the charts.
I mean, for sure. I felt like my baby world was very small.
Yeah.
I think as someone who works in a neonatal intensive care unit, so I'm in a NICU with sick babies, I was terrified of infection. I was the never go in a crowded space, don't take your baby out until they got their first set of vaccines. That was sort of my tipping point for allowing baby to interact more with the world. And I was, for better or for worse, dedicated to breastfeeding. I was going to do it, and
it's happening. Yeah.
And that was just my grit and my doggedness that I was like, I have to do this,
Same,
and I don't know that I recommend that I recommend trying to breastfeed. And I usually tell new parents, give it 2 weeks and see where you are.
Yeah.
Because usually it's better after 2 weeks. But, having that dedication to breastfeeding, which I did, there were moments of breastfeeding I enjoyed so much. It was, I think when I reflect back on it now that I'm not breastfeeding, I think in part that I was a little crazy and in part that there was so much joy that I got out of doing it.
Yeah.
But, I was breastfeeding, so I had to be with baby all the time. So we were kind of an appendage of each other. And then that really closes off your world.
Yeah.
If you're between breastfeeding, you can't watch a movie. I couldn't go to the movies.
No.
And not that anybody does that anymore, but I actually really enjoy the movies. But so I couldn't go see Dune 2, which had come out when my daughter was born, because I did not have 3.5 hours that I could be away from her.
No,
and so I think, again, that's why it's a team sport. You really need people to support you. You really need people in your corner, particularly when I think you're the birth parent and you're going through a hormonal change and a physical change. And let's be honest, can I say this too, Edith?
Yeah.
It is so boring sometimes to play with a baby.
It is. We have to be real about that.
What they find stimulating, yeah. What they find interesting, you will not as an adult find interesting. Like staring at a mirror.
I mean, maybe sometimes, but
no. Or truly playing with one of the toys, where you flip shades and colors. That's not that stimulating for me.
No, it's not. Right.
And just remember that's okay. And you want to have fun with it with babies, so you have to think of ways that you can incorporate it in that are fun, but it's also okay to know that your needs are different.
Yeah, I love that. So I really do love that you incorporated that and remember to put our needs in your beautiful charts. Now, you give us so many other amazing chapters in this book, all of which start with a personal funny story. You need to do stand-up, but until you do...
that's a dream, Edith. But
until you do, though, give parents an overview of what else they can expect in your book.
I think what I want the book to do is empower with really good information about infant care and empower you, too, to find a pediatrician that you can ask for this good information from. A lot of the information is from the American Academy of Pediatrics, which is an organization that I think is really putting kids first and putting out good science-based information for children. So, this is called Healthy Children, but obviously healthychildren.org has so much good information, not only on infant care, but also parenting that I think parents can really grasp onto. And having the ability to trust your pediatrician, to trust the medical advice that you're getting, I think frees you up to think more about what's really important, which is your connection with your baby and how you're going to do that. I think it's unreasonable to expect that all parents will become vaccinologists, for example, and know everything that's in a vaccine and every ingredient and every part of it. That's unrealistic, and parents are stressed. There was a reason why in 2024, the Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, put out a call saying hey, parents are really stressed. And I think that's in part because, again, of this information overload, not knowing what's true, not being able to have trusted sources. So, find a pediatrician that you can ask questions of, really delve into evidence-based medicine with them and free yourself up to do the important job of getting to know your child and forming a connection with them. I think that is probably the most important point that I want parents to know.
Yeah. And so freeing, right? Joanna, as you know, because you are a veteran of the show, we like to end our episodes with what we call a parenting prescription. So as expecting new parents or anyone trying to support them enters this stage in their lives, what is one thing you want them to remember?
It is okay to take time out of your very busy modern life to just get to know your baby. Not only is it okay, it is so important for you, and it is so important for your baby's brain as it grows and develops in those first few days, weeks, months, and years. And you have years to build this relationship. So take time in the beginning to understand the temperament of your baby. Give yourself the ability to think about how you want that connection to be, and then watch how it grows over time and how that love blossoms.
So well said. And I'll say one thing I want everyone to remember, which is to get this book, the Baby Bonding book from the American Academy of Pediatrics. Thank you so much, Dr. Joanna Parga-Belinkie, for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Edith.
And thank you at home for joining us. If you like the Healthy Children podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app and help us spread the word. Follow Healthy Children on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Threads at Healthy Children AAP, and be sure to visit healthychildren.org, the parenting website of the American Academy of Pediatrics. Healthy Children is a production of the American Academy of Pediatrics. Our creative team includes
Laura Alessio,
Catherine Beard,
Garrett Brown,
Zach Christman,
Ann Johnsos,
Kathy Jewell,
Claire Keating,
Doug Nagel,
Jackie Ortega,
Susan Stevens Martin,
Mary Claire Walsh,
Hannah Weston.
And our theme music was composed by Doug Nagel. We'll be back next week. I'm Dr. Edith Bracho-Sanchez. Thanks for listening. That was so fun.
That was really fun. Yeah.